Hello and welcome back. This is our interview series for the federal workforce. My name is Brian Kuhn, Certified Financial Planner with Wealth Enhancement. Today we're talking about a specific agency that has been affected by the incoming administration, the Small Business Administration. A lot of changes there, a lot to discuss that affects the broader economy. My guest today is Cameron Long. Cameron, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and background.
So I'm the founder of Value Buddy. We're an SBA business valuation firm. We work with SBA lenders for some of the required documentation for small business acquisitions. My background is in the small business transaction space and specifically looking at private equity due diligence.
And the Small Business Administration has been one of the many agencies that's been dramatically affected. Whether you're watching today as a result of working with the SBA or are an employee there, we hope you find this helpful. So just for background, let's go over what is the SBA and its role in the economy.
Yeah, so the SBA has been around for about 70 years. It was founded in 1953. Their mission is to aid, counsel, assist, and protect small businesses. And so two of the main ways they do that is through small business lending. They partner with typically traditional banks or SBA specific lenders, and they guarantee a certain portion of the loan if that loan is made within certain criteria to a small business. So there are two main programs. One is the 7A, the other is the 504 program. The 7A is the flagship program. And so it provides capital to small businesses for things like small business acquisitions, working capital, et cetera.
And during COVID, some of that changed, right? Its role expanded.
Yeah, so historically, those are the primary purposes of the SBA. During COVID, it became what I call kind of the ambulance for the small business portion of the economy. So they launched new programs like the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, and the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loans programs. And so during COVID, about $1.2 trillion of capital was deployed through those programs. So about almost 90% of all funding from the SBA during COVID came from those programs. And so with that, obviously the headcount at the SBA increased. It more than doubled from about 2019 through 2021. And about 85% of the portfolio, so all of the capital deployed by the SBA at the end of COVID was from those COVID era programs.
And during COVID, as I understand, the SBA's role expanded. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, definitely. So the programs I mentioned, historically, those have been the focus of the SBA. During COVID, what happened is I like to refer to the SBA became the ambulance for the small business portion of the economy. And with that, the SBA launched two pretty major economic programs, the first being the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, the second being the Economic Injury Disaster Loans Program, or EIDL. From these, 1.2 trillion in funds was deployed during COVID. About 90% of all funds from the SBA came from those programs during that COVID era. And so with that, the SBA headcount more than doubled from 2019 to 2021. And at its peak, about 85% of its loan portfolio was tied to those COVID era programs.
And so more recently, we've had to go in the other direction. We've had layoffs. What did those workers or functions do, and how will our economy be affected?
Yeah, so according at least to the SBA's press release, a lot of those, so 2,700 active positions were eliminated from the SBA. A lot of those were expiring COVID era and other term appointments. It says they said the bulk of the remainder would come from voluntary resignations from the active workforce and a limited number of reductions in force. So in theory, a lot of those, that headcount that's being reduced was tied to those COVID era programs. Although I suspect that a number will also focus on other portions of it, such as like economic disaster relief. The SBA did say that they don't expect kind of the core programs like 7A and the 504 program to be impacted by the reduction in force.
And there was a surplus in the SBA, and then now you were sharing that that's no longer the case. What caused that change?
Yeah, so cumulatively over the last decade, the SBA ran about a $4 billion surplus. So it actually didn't cost the taxpayers anything to run that program. And so every year for the last 10 years, they've run a surplus until last year. And so in the first half of last year, they lost about $274 million. And I think the final full year figure came out and was close to 500 million in deficit last year. So it lost its zero taxpayer subsidy status, which has been really important since the foundation of the SBA. There's a number of reasons that led to that. One would be fee waivers for smaller loans. So the prior administration made it so that there was no upfront fee if you took out a loan under $1 million, and that historically wasn't the case. And with that, there were also higher default rates. So the SBA default rate has increased significantly over the last few years for a number of reasons.
Yeah, that's important. As I understand it, the default rate has grown over time. So how are lenders responding to that?
Yeah, so I guess it's important to kind of unpack the reason behind that. So some of it might have been led by reduced underwriting standards by the SBA, but really the bulk of it comes from interest rates increasing, which dries up liquidity in the market. If you're a small business owner and your interest rates increase, it's a lot harder to pay back that SBA loan. And it's something we're seeing across industries. So commercial loan defaults are up about 50% since 2022. And really all other segments of lending, like auto loans, are also seeing their default rates increase. So really, some SBA lenders are tightening their credit box, is what they call it. So they're only lending to specific use cases and types of businesses. But given that there is a government guarantee, that the SBA lenders aren't necessarily on the hook like they would be for a commercial loan.
So in light of everything that's occurring, does the SBA still matter and have a role? And what would the economy look like without it?
Yeah, so the SBA is still a very critical U.S. government agency. I think it's one that has some of the most bipartisan support of any agency, and that's because small businesses are such a pillar of the U.S. economy. So like in investing, a lot of times you'll use the S&P 500 as a proxy for the U.S. economy, so the top 500 biggest companies. Those 500 companies combined employ about 29 million Americans, so a pretty significant amount. But small businesses that the SBA supports, they employ 62 million, so more than double what the S&P 500 companies combined employ. So very critical to the U.S. economy, and being able to provide funding to those businesses through the SBA is critical, because a lot of banks aren't necessarily focused on small business lending without that government backing.
Fantastic. Okay, good information. Very helpful. We appreciate it. Tell us about your typical customer and how they can reach you.
Yeah, so as I mentioned up front, we work with SBA lenders. So if you're an SBA lender issuing these loans to the small businesses, Value Buddy would be happy to support you with small business valuations. You can find me on LinkedIn at Cameron Long, or email me at cameron@hellovaluebuddy.com.
All right. And as for us, if you are watching this as a federal employee with the SBA or any agency and have questions or uncertainty regarding the changes with your employment, give us a call. Our contact information is on the screen. We offer a complimentary consultation to visualize your retirement, build a cash flow model, or cover any aspect of your personal finance there are concerns about. My name is Brian Kuhn, Certified Financial Planner with Wealth Enhancement, and my focus is federal workers.
Thanks for having me on, Brian. It was a great conversation, and I enjoyed covering this topic with you.
Brian Kuhn is a certified financial planner with 24 years experience in the industry. He's the author of Total Compensation, a practical guide to federal employee benefits, and the host of Federal Workforce Uncertainty.